Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pitchside Perspective podcast. After a few weeks of taking a break, we are back, and this episode is not one to miss. Joining us this week is friend of the podcast from season 1, Phil Phillipou from Alicante City FC, who has recently released his first published book called Inspiring Young Minds. It's all about mastering the mental side of the game, especially in the youth athletes. We delve into the concepts of the book, from creating the environment to teaching leadership and communication skills. This episode is filled with tons of advice, so we hope you enjoy it and take away a lot of learning parts.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Jack, we're back. A few weeks, obviously, we took a little bit of a break for two different reasons. One for you, obviously, you've been away, sunning yourself up in Portugal, and for me, becoming a new father. It's been an interesting few weeks for us, but how was Portugal?
First of all, congratulations on becoming a father and a new family. Great time away, somewhere different, see something new, family. So, really good.
I can confirm that my daughter is continuing being a Man United fan. I'm going to paint that on her, and it's funny because when I put her in a little Man United onesie for the first game, she was alive. I was like, surely she's going to bring a bit of luck. Didn't happen. So she's definitely not the good luck charm we need.
Yeah, I think you've got to leave the door open for her to make a choice on that one before you force her into the current situation at Man United.
The first time, obviously, you see, you're going to probably convince her to be a Huddersfield Town fan, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's part of the plan, yeah.
But talking different teams, you've got a bit of a snazzy shirt on there. What are you going for?
Yeah, I've got Nigeria on today. JJ Okocha, obviously Premier League legend, but also legend on the international team with Nigeria as well. Very iconic player, iconic kit.
One of those, I bet if you went and played like five-a-side later on and you wore that, it would give you that extra little 10% motivation to pull out those flair skills.
Well, yeah, motivation to attempt a few rainbow flicks. Might not work, but yeah, you got to try them if you're wearing a Okocha jersey.
I was going to say, and I've gone for our guest today being a diehard Crystal Palace fan. I've gone a Crystal Palace shirt that I pulled out the wardrobe, but I thought it was only right. And obviously, when we bring Phil in, we'll speak a little bit on Palace. But been an interesting start to the Premier League, Jack. I mean, Sunderland up in the top 4, and nobody would expect that. And maybe some people expected United to be down the bottom. Some people didn't. It's been an interesting one.
And I think most people are pretty happy to see the promoted teams all doing much better than in the recent years. Promoted teams have really struggled, so it's good to see the new teams doing well, at least at this point. A good start. I think that probably adds some pressure on some of the other clubs and managers compared to previous years, where maybe in the past managers have got a little bit of extra time because clubs have looked at some of the newly promoted teams and said, well, we're safe, we're better than these teams, whereas maybe not this year. So I think there's probably a few other clubs not panicking yet, but maybe feeling the pressure already.
Yeah, I feel like Keith Andrews at Brentford listened to the first episode where I've slated Brentford saying they're going down, and that's why they beat United at the weekend. But I think it's a breath of fresh air, right? That the teams that are coming up are putting up maybe a bit more of a fight than what we saw in previous seasons. I mean, it's a long season, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. They might end up falling down. But I think back to like when Wigan came up and they ended up like 10th, 11th, like the Steve Sidwell days. That's what you want to see. You want to see a little bit of variety in the Premier League, right?
Yeah, I think the one that comes to my mind is Ipswich Town. When they came up, I think it was Ipswich, and did really well, maybe even finished in the European spots, like top 8, top 6 maybe. We want to see it, and that's happening at the kind of bottom end of the table and at the top end of the table. I think we were getting close to the point of seeing Liverpool create such a big gap already. And they had one hand on the trophy, but obviously Palace beating them kind of just held them back a little bit, see if anyone can catch up a little bit more. Man City seem to be almost starting to hit their stride a little bit. So hopefully that can happen. Arsenal, I don't know. They have the squad now. They don't have the excuse of not having the striker, and yet they still look like a team that definitely think about keeping a clean sheet first and then scoring second.
Yeah, a little bit disappointing with Arsenal because you feel like with the signings they've made, you want them to go for it a little bit. But like you said, Arteta's got no excuses now. He's got the squad. And I know we're going to obviously talk a little bit on Crystal Palace title challenge, maybe late in a little bit. But before we get into the main bulk of the episode, it's time for the Guess Who challenge. Leaderboard right now. Jack, you're on 6 points. I'm behind you on 3 points. So I've got to do well this week. So we'll do 2 clues now. And we'll do 3 clues at the end.
Gotcha. So first clue is this English midfielder had 297 Premier League appearances for Tottenham Hotspur.
There could be a variety of players here. I mean, first name that came to my mind, I'm going to go Darren Anderton.
Okay.
Throwing it out there. Give me clue 2 and let's see if I'm sticking or twisting my answer.
Clue 2 is League Cup winner and runner-up in the League Cup as well, this player.
So I'm thinking that would be like they won it in like 2008, I think they won it. Interesting. Trying to think there, like that kind of era. That had like the clear or white. I'm thinking like Ledley King era, maybe like a Tom Huddleston. I don't think Darren Anderton would have gone that long. Maybe he did. I'm going to stick with Darren Anderton. I don't think it is the right answer, but we'll come back off the end of the episode. Hopefully, clue 3, I can get it and claw some points and equalise with you.
Yep.
But yeah, you definitely got me thinking.
Good. That's the plot.
Brilliant. So let's do it. Phil, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Loving the shirt. I feel like I should have worn mine now.
I was going to say I had to do this for you. I'm glad that just wearing this shirt is bringing that smile back on that face. But Crystal Palace, man, you must be. Have you gone down to the bookies and put a bet on them winning the league this year? What's going on?
I'm fully making the most of it. I really told my friends we're going to win the quadruple. I'm being insufferable like to all my friends. But it's like, when's this next going to happen? You know, you just got to make the most of it before it starts crumbling down and Glasner goes to United or something.
But that's an interesting one because it's funny. I was on NBC's Premier League show on Monday, and they asked a question of like the system, and I said, Crystal Palace have signed the right characters, right? So if they've signed the right characters, maybe over ability, whereas Man United, in comparison, have signed players with ability but the wrong character. And you look at Glasner as a manager, he's come in and he's different to your Vieiras and people, Pardew's and people before that. He's done so well. How you must be maybe happy, but also nervous that he might be leaving sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I think he'll stay for the season. He's got 1 season left before his contract's up at the end of this season. My guess would be he would leave at the end of the season. I think he'd finish the job here. I mean, his character's incredible. It's like you said, it's funny what you said there with Man United and people that because they don't have legs in midfield. I mean, a lot of the time on midfield is Will Hughes and Adam Walton. And I mean, Adam Walton's got the potential to become world class. If there's one thing he lacks is he's not the quickest. He's not necessarily the strongest. And Will Hughes, he's another one. He battles for the ball. I wouldn't say he's a player with legs. He's not someone who's going to last. He's going to go full on 90 minutes. But yeah, like you said, he's just got the best out of what he's got. And I think Slot said that after the game last week. He's playing the right system with the right players, which is something United are seriously lacking. Well, I think there's something deeper with United as well, though, the whole culture, and it's been going on for a few years. I know not this bad, but it seems to have been on a decline.
Maybe as we get into the episode, I might put a question on you that if you were going into Man United, especially with like your book and whatnot, is what would you maybe change? But I want to kind of take you back. Were you at the FA Cup final? How was those emotions?
I flew back for the semis and the final, and I mean, it was incredible. I've never. It sounds ridiculous to a lot of people, especially people who don't watch football, but one of, if not the greatest day of my life. I mean, I haven't had a kid yet, so I'm allowed to say that. Yeah, I was there with my dad, my sister, my cousins, and obviously we've been at games together. We've lost 4-0 at home to Scunthorpe, and then suddenly we're here at Wembley winning the FA Cup, and I mean, you got grown men all around you at full time, crying their eyes out, and it was very emotional. It was a very, very surreal experience. Something that will stay with me forever.
It's an interesting story as well with Palace because I've got a soft spot for them, having grown up 10 minutes down the road from the stadium, being a season ticket holder to go watch the games as a kid because it was so cheap when they were in the Championship. And like living through those nearly going out of business, the administration days, Parish coming in, what a journey Crystal Palace have been on. And I feel like the journey isn't slowing down. If anything, it's speeding up. And you've got obviously the question mark over Europa League versus Conference League. But how do you see Palace maybe faring in Europe now?
I mean, there was when we had the trophy parade, and Glasner did a bit of a speech at the end, and he said, "Right, let's go next season, 4 competitions. Let's go out and win all of them." And, I mean, obviously he didn't count the Community Shield, but he's gone and won that, and see, we're still 18 games unbeaten now. I think us and Fiorentina are the two favourites to win it. I mean, our worst performances this season have been against Fredrikstad, who I think they were 8th in the Norwegian league at the time, and we scraped through that. But we've strengthened the squad now. Obviously, the big complaint was with the fans and with Glasner was we did our business too late. So again, that was it wasn't ideal. Obviously, you win the FA Cup, you think, okay, let's crack on now. Let's go that next level. And obviously, the whole thing with the Europa League hits. Then we're not making signings, something that last season Glasner complained about. And obviously, he's the one person I wouldn't want to lose at this point. See, Neze was tough. If we lost Gay, that would be really tough. But the one with the biggest negative impact would be if Glasner left.
I was going to pick up on that point too, Matt. How important has he been? And then what does the future look like with that, do you think?
I mean, no one, if and when he leaves, no one's going to begrudge him for that. It's like Eze as well. Obviously, that's about two people who have done it with such class. They've always treated Palace really well. And obviously, you see the things that happened with Isak and Wissa. That's just not there. Apparently Gay was disappointed he didn't make the move on transfer deadline day, but he's still there. He's pulled out man of the match performances. He hasn't put a foot wrong the other day against Liverpool. Maybe a bit of a rehearsal, but he's done it with pure class. We're not going to keep him. He's honestly one of the best centre backs in the world at the moment. I think it'll only be once he goes to Liverpool or Real Madrid. I know they're interested as well, where people really see that.
Yeah, no, I think he's definitely got a few suitors on the cards there where he could go to. I mean, it's definitely, you said there about Crystal Palace doing their business late, but I think the best business they've done was obviously keeping Marc Guéhi in terms of if you lose him, very hard to replace. And not just in terms of his ability, but his leadership as a captain. He's a South London boy, and I think he's come out recently and said, look, yeah, he probably wanted to go, but he understands the situation. And for Crystal Palace, him going is make or break. So
yeah,
maybe I can see it now, maybe end of the year, that he looks to say, you know what, I'm going to respect Crystal Palace even more and go abroad and go to a Real Madrid. So then I'm not going to what could be a direct rival if you are going to go win the title.
It still feels really weird saying that. No, and it's people saying, yeah, but you're going to lose him for free now. I mean, it's 35 million. Yes, it's a lot of money, but then you add on whatever the sell-on clause to Chelsea was on that. And if he helps us win another trophy or get further in Europe or higher up the league, let's say if we finish in the top 6, then it's worth it, isn't it? And it's like last year, people were saying about you rejected Newcastle last year for 65 million. It's like, yeah, and then we went and won the FA Cup. I think you ask any Palace fan, out of 100% taking that deal.
Yeah, you've got to take the long-term approach here, right? Like you could have taken 60 mil, but that gap of 30 million that you potentially might make in year 2, you're clawing back in FA Cup. Now you're in Europe, you're making more money. So I think you're spot on there. But yeah, definitely see Crystal Palace having a good season, and we definitely wish them well. And Glasner's doing a great job. From a professional background, what have you been up to lately, Phil? And obviously we had you on in season 1, talking about Mindset Sport and what you've been doing there. What's new?
Yeah, so I mean, much of the same in that sense. So I'm working with Alicante City in Spain. We're working with a few other clubs online. As well as that, I'm coaching as well. So I coach a kids SAD team over here in Spain. So it's my 3rd year doing that, which kind of led me to writing the book, which I know we're going to be speaking about in a moment. And now I'm starting my own kids football club as well. It should just be a weekly thing, just local players. So yeah, a bit of everything. A lot of it online with the mindset stuff, and then on the ground more coaching kids.
Are you enjoying being back on field coaching and getting into it, especially with that young level?
Yeah. To be honest, so today was my first one, which is why I've lost my voice. So it's the first one since May. So obviously it's a bit rusty, but yeah, I mean it's kind of like what I mean, I've always been a youth coach, been coaching for 20 years now, but there was a spell when I first moved to Spain, and the first 7 years I was coaching adults. I liked it, but I've always preferred coaching kids. So I went back to coaching kids, and it's something I speak about in the book on the first chapter. You know, I go back, can't wait to start. And I guess it's like when you're playing, you kind of need a couple of games to get into it, and completely forgot about a lot of the stuff that I had previously done, and they just ran rings around me. You know, I got a guy playing basketball with the ball, another guy just decided to go and eat a sandwich mid session. So it kind of scared me a bit. It's like, have I completely lost my touch here?
It's interesting, right, though, because like you say that when I took a few weeks off after the birth of my daughter, and that first session back, I'm driving to it, and I was a little bit nervous. I'm like, I haven't done this for a few weeks, and it does take a little bit of time to get back into it. And even though you've been doing it for 20 odd years, like it's like almost riding a bike. It just takes you a little bit. Once you get it, you get going. But obviously you've worked in the UK, you've worked in the US, and working in Spain. What do you see the biggest differences with children at the youngest level between all three of those countries? Because I feel like they all have a difference in ideologies and mindsets of them. What have you seen as the key differences?
Yeah, I mean, in Spain, so I see the UK and US very similar. So obviously I've been lucky enough to experience both. Much, you know, about hard work, how much you run. In Spain, I'll say they work smarter. Saying that though, that doesn't mean to say it's better. I think sometimes they lack the hard work. You know, that sometimes you got to really get on at them if the team's lost the ball and they're just there thinking, and they'll just stay there. So I think it's what I write a lot about in the book is combining that working hard and working smart, because it is a completely different ball game. You know, we have a lot. So with Alicante City, we bring a lot of Americans, Brits, Australians, Irish, and Scandinavians, and a lot of the others. When we bring them into the group of Spanish players, they're thinking, "Why are you running around so much?" You know, if intensity for them thinks is something completely different. Intensity in Spain is more how fast is the ball going, as opposed to how much are you running. So it does take a lot of adaptation for those players. Usually takes a few months even just to get used to it. Even with the referees, it's sometimes non-contact here. You know, you rarely see a 50-50 without the referee blowing one way or the other one. It completely changed my coaching completely as well, because obviously it challenges a lot of your beliefs. So when I came here, I was coaching for 11, 12 years. When I came to Spain, I was coaching in the US and the UK. You know, you've been learning something for that amount of time, and then you come here and it's just completely different. And at the end of the day, it's what I tell the players. At the end of the day, Spain's not going to. You can moan about the referee, but Spain's not going to change for you. You've got to change for Spain. You got to adapt. So it did really help me grow as a coach. See a completely different side of it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I know, obviously, Jack, you were in Spain last year, I think it was. And obviously you saw a little bit of a difference having been coached in the US and when you went to Spain and played against them and you saw the training sessions. Some similar things there to what Phil's saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was really impressed. I think something that I see with the coaches over there is just they're very good at putting across their passion and love for the game, and with that the tempo of practices. So definitely agree that there's an intensity, but a different type of intensity. I would agree with what Phil says there about it's the intensity of the pace of the game, pace of the ball movement, not necessarily how far you run or how fast you run. But what I definitely saw with the coaches was how good they are with their voice, but also with their body language of injecting that tempo and that passion into the activities, into the games as well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting one when you get to explore different countries and different ways of doing things. I think it's I would encourage any coach to try and go to different environments and just learn and be a sponge and take it all in. And it's not to say one country or one federation does it better than the others. It's all going to be different. It's about finding what's right for you as well and what's right for your players. And now when we talk about what's right for your players, this is where I'd love to bring in now, obviously, since we last spoke, you've now become an author and you've wrote the book Inspiring Young Minds. I've started reading a little bit of it already, and it's a fantastic book. Let's put it this way. Phil, if I've walked into an elevator and I see you, how are you selling this book to me? Give me a quick brief on it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's developing mental skills for your players. So it's geared towards coaches and parents as well, but mostly towards coaches who are coaching youth players. So how can you add in? How can you help your player gain confidence? How can you help your player gain resilience, concentration? So all these kind of non-tangible stuff. But obviously, as youth coaches, we don't really get that much time with our players to sit down with them, have a full-on session with them. So it's how can you add these into your sessions?
It's definitely an interesting one in there, because I think when we look back at when we were players as kids, for me, it was like the 90s era where this really didn't come into play. It was just a case of going out there, winning your tackles, trying to score, whatever it might be from a very simple point of view. And I didn't play at a super high level back home, but I'm sure even like Jack, for you, when you were at Huddersfield, it wasn't, I doubt a coach was coming up to you and checking in mentally with you as you were going through the system. And I think this is something that is so important for coaches in the modern game, is you're almost becoming mini psychologists with these players. You've got to have that emotional intelligence to understand the needs and the wants of the players. And I think the key word here is that inspiration. When we talk about inspiration, I'd love to know, what was your inspiration to start this book?
Yeah, so I mean, going back to what I was saying, when I first went back to coaching kids again, and the first day they absolutely ran rings around me, and I had to go back to the drawing board and think, okay, what am I missing here? And spend 2 days just studying really. 'Cause it kind of scared me a bit because it's always been my passion coaching kids. So, and we really made some really big changes with the coaches as well, and that's why the first chapter is setting the environment before you can do anything, before you can get any kind of buy-in. You've got to set that environment, set the standards. So 2 days later, I went into that session with their kids again, and it was like, I read, there was a couple of books, one by Steve Salis, Educating Football, another one by Sue Cowley, Helping the Buggers Behave, or something like that. And she's a teacher, and it's about behavior management. So it's like before you do that, before you can teach anything, it's just setting that environment. So it ended up me just writing out a guide really, and so this was pretty much a manual for myself. I thought, well, actually, this might actually be able to help other coaches as well. So that was kind of the inspiration for it.
And I think you're spot on. And starting with that environment, I think in any walks of life, that environment is the first thing it's that first impression. When I teach on the FAW courses, one thing that I really home in on is when a player arrives at a session, whether it's an adult or a youth, they want to feel that environment straight away, and they know it straight away. They're smart. And something as simple as if the balls are all laid out nice and neat, the cones are there, that can be huge to start with. And obviously, you said earlier that you had your first session this morning with the little ones. When you were going through that session, what were some of the things that you did early on to set that environment when you're putting your book into practice?
Yeah, so this is the third year we've been working at this school now. So I take a couple of players from Alicante City as well, and they come and help me coach. And yeah, so little thing, as soon as you arrive, just give a fist bump to the coaches before you touch any ball. So like you said there, just having the balls laid out. So like before you touch any ball, just come and say hello, ask. Again, this is just kind of the soft skills. Ask, oh, can I use a ball, please? And there's some players there that is the third year with me as well. So it's about 4 or 5 of them. So they already know. So that's good as well, because they're the older players. They kind of set the environment as well. So yeah, so as soon as they arrive, hi coach, can I play the ball? And we only let them take 1 or 2 balls out. So there's about 20 kids today. And the reason is trying to mimic street football a bit. Obviously, everything's very structured. It's something I noticed when I was coaching in the States. Everything is very structured, which is good. But what you're losing is that deliberate play with the players as well, letting them just, okay, there's 2 balls, there's 20 of you. You guys decide what you're going to do. Are you going to play a match? Are you going to play lightning? Are you going to? But you guys decide. You guys organize the teams. I'm not doing it. You've got 10 minutes until the session starts. Honestly, they love it as well because it's 10 minutes. So then they end up coming really early too to the session, and they come in with excitement. They know if we get there early, we get to play more match. So little things like that, and setting boundaries, setting guidelines, even things, when you hear 3 whistles, go on one knee. Because obviously it's something I had to learn with obviously coaching. The whistle at the beginning is great, but it starts to become white noise when it's start. It's also stop. It's also foul. So 3 sharp whistles, everyone knows now, like you go down one knee. So if at any point, chaos is good, but if there's too much chaos because there's other groups around as well, it's like, okay, 3 whistles down to one knee. And it just becomes instant then, especially when you lead it from day one.
That's an interesting one that's got me thinking about the 3 whistles. I think, like you said, you want to get your players used to a whistle, but you don't want to overuse it so it becomes, like you said, that white noise. But I want to home in on something you said right at the start of that in terms of the fist bump and that physical interaction with the players. I think is so important. The players, when they arrive, they want to be seen. They want to be seen and they want to be heard. And how important have you found it to have that physical element to the greeting rather than just them coming and getting it and going, in terms of their social skills and being able to mature as people rather than players as well?
Yeah, and I think this is something that people don't realize. It actually helps confidence. You're going up to another human being, you're looking them in the eyes. So that's another thing we say as well. Make sure you make eye contact, look at them in the eye, give them a fist bump. It actually helps you have confidence because obviously looking in the eye, especially for a kid, it helps them sort the posture out. And, as the saying, the outside drives the inside. You can tell when you look at someone who's low in confidence by how they look. But if you just adjust it, it's actually releasing serotonin when you got your chest out, shoulders back, looking forward. So without realizing it, it's actually increasing confidence in that moment. Yeah, that's great for football, but it's also a great life skill.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and it's one thing that I think, like you said, there's a life skill that when they go outside of football, when they're going into a job interview, shaking hands, that eye contact is crucial. And I think in a modern world where we rely on communication via devices, via iPads, mobiles, and whatnot, and I think you speak a little bit about this in the book of the distraction potentially of devices. How important then, from a communication point of view, is it for these players to develop those communication skills?
Yeah, I mean, this is the generation that have communicated the least in any generation we've ever had because of the reasons you said. It's so easy just to text something, but that ease has caused us to have a bit of a comfort crisis where anything that's slightly difficult, anxiety is aroused too much, meaning that, okay, that's a bad feeling, so I'll stop doing it. I'll go back to what's comfortable. Even you want to order some food, just press a few buttons, and it comes to your door. Barely have to interact with anyone. It's incredible. So, and I want to make clear as well, every generation, I write it in the book that, every generation, even back to Aristotle, says that the generation, the younger generation or this or that. This is just, this generation isn't worse than other generations. It's just they've got a different issue. Obviously, maybe our age, maybe a bit younger than us, that was the whole, everyone gets a trophy for participation. That's probably our kind of issues. We do have to take that into consideration. We are losing a lot of life skills and soft skills that we used to have. I remember back when I was playing for Addiscombe Corinth. Have you heard of him, Stuart, South London boy? And we had Mel Blythe, who was a former Crystal Palace player, and he was very, very old school. Obviously, you arrive there and very stern, and we kind of lose that as well, that respect for elders. Some people don't like when I say this, but it's your emotions aren't that important. It's not to say they're not important, but they're not that important. When you're playing a match, if you're feeling sad and you're focusing on feeling sad, it's just going to inflate that sadness. It's kind of an era before where you kind of said it there before that just get on with your job. What's your job? When it's time to perform. It doesn't really matter at that moment what your emotions are. Yes, you can look afterwards when you're reflecting, you can kind of look back at that.
Something that relates to both those emotions and those interactions. I think with this generation now, research shows that they love feedback, getting information on their performances and what they're trying to do. So how do you get that feedback across to players while still being conscious of the things you mentioned there about their emotions, about that kind of communication or lack of communication?
Yeah, so this is more with the older players. So younger players, obviously, we go feedback using the coaching toolbox as it is. Sometimes it's individual intervention, sometimes it's kind of more coaching in the flow. But with older players, so in Alicante City, I get to sit down with the players in presentations or one-on-one. We talk about the 3 sources. So we talk about, can you get feedback from your coaches? Can you get feedback from your peers? And feedback from yourself? And this is one that they forget. And like you said there, Jack, they love feedback. But sometimes what happens is they're always looking for answers from elsewhere. So getting them, yes, get those answers, but also think for yourself as well. Sit down and just, okay, what did I do well in my session today? What didn't I do so well? What can I improve on for the next one? At the end of the day, only one person knows if you didn't 100% go into it. And that's the person who was doing it. I think the episode with Steve Guppy, right? I think he said it as well about players getting diaries, and I think it's such a good tool to have.
I think you're spot on there in terms of, I think from a motivation standpoint, and Jack's spoken about this when we were with Steve Guppy, is if I'm constantly writing down the extra work I'm doing, or I'm writing down my thoughts, my feelings of the game, and then I come to a game in 4 or 5 weeks' time that I'm nervous for, but then I see my diary that's thick, full of notes I've wrote, I can look back at that and go, you know what? I've put in the work. I'm going to be fine in that next game. And obviously in the book, you speak on motivation. I think we're in an era where, and we talk about generations, and this isn't to say again that one is better or worse than the other, but young players now are wanting to watch highlights of games rather than watching the full 90 minutes of games. And the motivation to go out there might be slightly different. I know a lot of people in Europe, it's especially, their motivation is to be a professional player. We understand that it's a very small percentage of that. So how important is it when it comes to motivation? Is it of setting goals and being realistic with kids and having those honest conversations?
Yeah, I say it from the start, motivation is overrated. It's a feeling. You can't always affect it. We don't want motivate. I think Brendan Rodgers actually said it. He said, I don't want motivated players. I want committed players. So when you're committed, it's not, you don't always feel like doing it, but you still go and do it. I think he uses the example of a surgeon. It's like a surgeon might have 5 surgeries that day. By the 5th one, he's probably not feeling motivated, but he can't just say, I don't feel like doing it. I'm not motivated. I'm not going to do it. But he goes to instant gratification as well. Yeah, I can't believe it, honestly. Stu, Jack, for the last 3-4 years, the amount of players and parents of 18-year-old kids that have said to me, but his time's running out. You look at Lamine Yamal. I was like, how can you compare that? It's incredible. He's like, well, what about all the other players who have, your Jamie Vardys, who have been 27 before they played professional football, or whatever it was, when he won the league at 29, 30, we've then been playing for professional for a few years. So something we always say, motivation is overrated. The way I can describe it is that friend that you have. The one, when you're with them, it's unbelievable. It's really fun. But it's also the ones when you WhatsApp them, you don't hear from them from a few days. So it's not something to rely on. It's more like a family member. You might not always get on, but you're always there for them. That's commitment. So it's looking at that.
I was going to say, it's interesting there. I haven't really heard somebody say about motivation being overrated, and it's more commitment than motivation. How do you coach that commitment when kids are getting pulled in so many different directions, right? Especially with us in the US, most of my players that I coach are playing 3 or 4 different sports, which is great. But then the other argument on it is, if you want to be the best at one sport, you've got to just focus on that sport alone. So how do you get that commitment, and how do you teach that to young players?
Yeah, so we talk about that a bit in the book, the difference between sampling sports and specializing in sports. it depends what age as well. At the end of the day, if it's at a younger age, I'll say up to 12 years old, fun is really important in training because you want to keep them in the game. So when coaches try to go into like deliberate practice and really serious too soon, but the kids haven't fallen in love with it yet because they don't love it, that's where we get a problem. That's where we get your burnouts and they drop out of the game. So younger ages, obviously motivation, I'll say, is more, when we're talking about this, motivation is overrated. It's more, I'll say 12 plus, even maybe 11. But the younger games, just let them be kids. I can't remember which philosophy it was, but it says play is the job of kids. That's the profession. Just play. Just let them enjoy it. It's not only about enjoying, but they're learning so much more when they're enjoying it. So, but also letting them know that sometimes there is going to be boring moments. So it's something about, we spoke with our kids today, they're 11, 12, 13-year-olds. And I said, there's going to be times where it's really fun. We're going to do some fun games. And there's times where, okay, today we're doing passing. First day, I just want to teach you, this is what I expect. It's not going to be fun, but get through it. Sharing that with them as well, that it's not always going to be fun, but you can get past that bit, you can enjoy it.
It's an interesting point you make about obviously fun. And I think going back to what you said earlier, having that open play, that street style at the start with one or two balls, I think allows the players, if they've come from school and they've had a bad day at school or a bad day at home, whatever it is, just coming in and start enjoying what they're doing rather than having that structured environment. And obviously there you spoke about some sessions might not be as fun because you're trying to teach those technical mechanics and you're trying to get it into it. How do you balance a session between it being structured and goal orientated, but also having some fun element as well? Because I find sometimes coaches go one way or the other. They either try and make it super fun and the players aren't getting too much out of it, or it's too strict and the players then that's why they end up quitting at the age of 13.
Yeah. So I mean, the way we do it, because see, this is they're at school, so they're going straight from school. So having that play time at first, then the warm up tends to be quite fun, competitive, a lot of dodging, and we sandwich in those technical. Again, I know I've got friends who work in England and US who are totally against technical rep with no opposition. For me, I mean, to be honest, in Spain, I don't think I've ever seen a coach who hasn't done that. But each to their own. I think they're either way. But doing that technical rep, for me, that actually increases creativity. Because if you can completely master the ball, it gives you so many more options. I mean, an argument I've got for that is, have you ever seen someone practice a step over just straight into you're going up against an opposition? No, of course not. They're going to do it by themselves a bit. So I do sandwich that in a bit, the technical, and then the beginning of the tactical can be a bit boring, I say to them. But then it goes into more fun because then you are putting that into practice. So we kind of sandwich it into the middle, and then we always finish with a game, and kind of like setting the standards there. I always say to them, we're always going to finish with a game. How long we play kind of just depends on how we do in the session as well. So I'm constantly having to stop it because I'm almost choosing to speak, and I always say it is a choice. You either choose to speak, and it kind of makes them think about thinking then.
It's funny you mentioned there about obviously a game at the end of practice. I feel like if your session doesn't have at least one point of a kid saying, when are we playing a game? When are we playing a scrimmage? It isn't a proper session. And I think there where you've spoken about it depends on how you do in this session leads into that inspiration. You want the players to be driven to have to work hard to get a reward at the end. And obviously for most kids, the reward is either shooting or playing a game at the end. I think what you've done there is crucial to develop the right balance, and you start then looking to develop leadership skills, because then you start having one or two kids in the group naturally become those leaders to say, boys, girls, if we work hard now, we're going to get a longer game at the end. And obviously in the book you speak a little bit on leadership. How can coaches listening to this start developing leadership skills, and at what age do you think they should be doing this?
I mean, I think from 7 onwards you could. The important thing here, and a bit of a caveat, is if you don't have if you don't set the standards though from the beginning, it's not going to work. So setting those standards at the beginning of what the expectations are, what the rules are, and then after a while you can say, okay, for the match today, Pablo, I'll go for the Spanish now. Pablo, choose two teams. Guys, make sure they're fair teams and make sure position wise it's more or less the same as well. So right, you get some, and then next week, Pablo got to do it last week, and I'll do it this week. And then so you can really start doing that. And then there's even an anecdote I put in the book where my first season with that team, they were playing against one of the rivals, and obviously for me it doesn't mean much to me. I don't know this school from that school. They're playing against a rival school. And I just went about it the same as always. And this is where your coaching instincts, you got to listen to them sometimes. Something didn't feel right to me. I was saying all this stuff, but I didn't really have the attention that I usually had, or I don't know, a feeling. And at half time, we're losing 3-1. And thought, right, well, I mean, these players, they're brilliant kids, to be fair. And I said, right, this is your rival. I think the badge means a bit more to you guys today than it usually does. You guys do the team talk. You guys decide on subs. It's roll on subs because it's futsal. And just stood back. They knew that everyone had to get a game, so they rotated it fairly. But then they started rotating depending on the score. I mean, then they went and won 4-3 in the last minute. But this is what I mean. It's not something you can do every week, but every now and then, just throwing them. Okay, you got a bit more responsibility today. See how you get on with it.
I think that's interesting because, again, you don't want to encourage this to be every single session, every single game. But I think there comes moments in coaching where you almost throw a dog a bone a little bit, and you give the players that extra little bit of responsibility. And at the end of the day, to most coaches in most environments, it doesn't matter if you're winning or losing. It's that development side of it. And that could have backfired and they lost 7-1. But obviously it's transpired that it's worked very well. How important do you think it is then for coaches to sometimes take a back seat when it comes to the development and just observe rather than always talking, and finding that balance between interjecting and taking that step back?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. It's only when you step back they can really see what is happening. When you're constantly right in the middle of it, it's hard to get that 360 view. So sometimes you've got to sit out of that circle and just have a look. And I think it's AFC Wimbledon. I can't remember what they call it, but it's once. So I mean, AFC Wimbledon, as you know, not the biggest club is in London. I think they're League One, League Two, but they're consistently getting some really good youth players out of their academy. I think Joe Gomez, one of them maybe, and there's a few more. But something they do a few times a year is, okay, on this day, every age group, the players are in charge of the team talks. So it's just brilliant to see. There's a really good article on it. It's brilliant to see that you just got these under 8s, under 9s, and they're just doing the team to one person or two and having a conversation. And okay, the other team, they keep doing this. Okay, so again, you can see so much more when you do that. And again, it's another great life skill to have.
You talk about obviously taking a step back sometimes. I think sometimes as coaches, we wish there's another factor to this, that we wish another environment took a step back, and that's parents at times. And you spoke earlier in this episode about that parent involvement, and that us as coaches, we might only see a kid for a 90-minute session, a 60-minute session a week, and we're affecting that one slot, whereas parents obviously play a crucial role here. And I know in the book you mentioned about parent education. Somebody listening to this episode who's going to go look out and go and buy the book, how can this benefit potentially parents? How can we educate parents? Because they're the ones, again, that are going to have such a huge role to play in this environment building.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about what percentage you're going to spend with that child per week compared to the parent. I mean, first of all, every country I've worked in, UK, US, Spain, it's all been the same. You always get a couple of parents who are going to be a real issue. For the most part, 90% are great, really supportive. It's just that 2, 5, 10% that are the loudest. So just how you do with the kids, you do it with the parents as well. You set the standards. And that's actually the parents that we've got here with the team now, they're brilliant. Really, really supportive. Last year we had quite a tough year. We lost a lot of the better players, but they were brilliant, and they said, to be fair, they said it's because you guys set from the start, okay, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. Okay, on game days, we're not gonna talk too much to the players. Before the game, during the game, after the game, some tactical stuff during the game, maybe, but we're not going to get that involved. And, the way I put it to the parents is, it's like if they had a math exam. Okay, you can sit in the math exam, you can give them all the answers. The answers might even be correct, but have they actually learned anything because of that? So at the end of the day, you just got to, and I think putting that out and setting the standard with the parents as well, right from the off, before the first game, really helps, and explaining why. Not just, okay, this is what we're doing, that's it. Okay, we're going to do this because at the end of the day, it's going to benefit your kid. And we all want the same goal. The parents or coaches, we all want the same goal, to benefit the kid.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And I think the key part here is that open communication. You need all parties going in the same direction. You need the players wanting to go in the right direction, the coaches and the parents. And I think you're spot on there in terms of the parents have to understand what is going to be best for their son or daughter in that moment. And they sometimes think they might know what they need. But again, my advice would be take that step back and look at it from a different perspective. I think throughout this episode, you've given some great ideas for myself, especially like when I go out and coach tomorrow night, I'm going to look at potentially stepping back, giving the players maybe a little bit more responsibility and see how they handle it. When you were writing this book and you're going through it, and obviously now the book's released, what would be maybe one key lesson you would like a coach reading this to really take away from the book?
So I guess why we all coach in our own way, we want to change the world, and football is just the platform that we're using to change the kids' lives. You both have been coaching for quite a while now. How nice is it when you see an old player of yours and they still remember you and they still think fondly back to you? It's the greatest feeling in the world when you feel like you've given some kind of gift to the world, however it might be, giving this kid confidence or helping this kid, he or she gets through tough times because of football. Football is just the platform we use to excel these lives.
No, that's brilliant. And I think it's definitely going to be one that I'm going to enjoy reading. And I think it's going to be one of those books that isn't just going to be read once. It's going to be something that you can use as that coaching tool to keep referring back to, because there's so many key ingredients that go into this book that I think might come at one stage of a player's life. It might come a little bit later. Really, hats off to you for bringing this book out. And for people listening, where can people find the book?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, so you can get it in the US, UK. I mean, most countries it's available. So yeah, Amazon.
Yeah, and we'll put it in the episode description below as well for people to click onto. But no, Phil, this has been excellent, and I think you've given a good glimpse into what this book can bring. And I've certainly found from my own education of coaching is, yes, you can go do the courses, but it's the informal learning of reading the books, reading the articles. And yeah, I would definitely encourage, just from me reading that first chapter, I think I'm looking forward to reading more. But Jack, any final words from you?
I think games have come a long way in terms of maybe some of this work at the professional level, at the highest level, but in terms of resources for youth coaches who are trying to make a positive impact on their players on the field, but also just off the field in their everyday lives. These resources are needed. As Stu mentioned, it's a coaching tool more so than I would describe it as a book. I would describe it as a coaching tool. Definitely any kind of youth coaches out there, definitely jump on this book. And I like the idea of there being practical methods within this book of what you can implement in your next session or over the next year of your sessions that are going to positively impact many players. But even if it's just one player, then it's definitely worthwhile.
No, 100%. And as the episode comes to a wrap, Jack, obviously the last question falls on you. And it's going to be interesting what Phil's answer is going to be, considering the book.
So if you could change one thing about the game, what would it be?
The game in the pro game, or
It can be pro or youth.
I think change VAR. I know it's an obvious one, but when you score a goal, but then you're kind of thinking, like the other day against Liverpool, we scored a 97th minute goal. I go crazy and I'm like, oh no, wait.
Yeah.
It kind of kills that bit of emotion. I mean, the goal line technology is brilliant because it's just instant. You get a result straight away, but I think we need to find a better way for that.
Yes, it's a popular answer. It's so true because there's benefits of it, but the last minute winner, not letting your full emotions out, it's tough.
Yeah, it definitely drives me insane. But no, Phil, this has been great. Inspiring young minds, available on Amazon. Coaches, get on it. Parents, get on it. Players, get on it. But before we wrap up, Jack, as this episode's gone on, I felt like my first answer is not quite correct. I was thinking Darren Anderton probably didn't make it to that 08 season. So I'm going to need the rest of the clues, please.
So Nestle scored a spectacular volley to win the game for Bournemouth in his last ever game.
Who was it? At first, I was going back to Tom Huddleston, but I don't think... Jermaine Genius?
You're Jermaine Genius.
He would have been around that 08 season, but whether he went to Bournemouth or not, I know he was at Newcastle, but I'm just thinking that English midfield player. But I might need the last clue, or the last two clues.
Last two clues. So next clue, he was nicknamed, unfortunately, Sick Note, as he was seen as never reaching his full potential because of injury setbacks.
I think I've got it. I think Jermaine Genius is the one. But just for listeners at home, and again, I could be wrong, but that final, I'm locking in Genius on clue 3. But yeah, carry on.
On clue 4, okay. It might change after this one. Started every game in Euro 96 and the 98 World Cup and scored England's opening goal in that 98 World Cup.
So it's not... I've got that completely wrong then. Oof. Yeah, I mean, Jermaine Genius hasn't done that. I guess I'm going to stick with Genius, but I know it's probably going to be wrong. This could be a 0-point week. Jack, who is the player?
It was Darren Anderton, please.
I've only...
What can you do this?
But surely I'm getting my 5 points here.
Your chances you've been... How can you... Well,
All right.
That's going to have to go to the panel.
That's going to have to go to the panel. We're going to have to get the likes of Brody given the final verdict there.
Tottenham did win the League Cup 98-99 season. I think that year was called the Worthington Cup was the sponsor.
See, if you just said Worthington Cup, I might have got it.
Well, I didn't. It's called the League Cup. It was the sponsor's name.
I'm definitely going to argue that one. I feel like I'm going to be unjustified in terms of getting my points there from 0. Well, if I've gone for... Yeah, I guess I'm on 0 points then, I guess.
We'll speak to
we'll speak to the panel. We'll speak to the powers that be. But Phil, fantastic episode from you. Really looking to reading the rest of this book, and glad we could get you on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on again.
Our pleasure. And to the listeners at home, we bid you a farewell.